Hi, this is Dave, Fellering Guide. This is a quick video that explains dead ground. So it's a term we sometimes hear when we're referring to the landscape. In some of the video answers to the navigation tasks that I do, I might talk about dead ground, and you might hear or read people talking about dead ground when they comment on those tasks. So what is it? What does it mean? I'm going to give a few examples to help explain it. Okay, so let's have a look at this example on the map. So imagine that we are here at this point X, and we're looking northeastwards down onto Burgh Sound. So if we had the map, we might expect that we'd be able to see the sea, Burgh Sound, and we'd see this area of land here out over the other side of the sound. We might expect to see this bay here, this spit of land sticking out, and then another bay, and then the coastline. We might also expect that we'd be able to see these roads here that run down along the coastline. But what is the reality if we are X? We're X, what can we actually see? Well, here is a photograph taken from that X location, and as you can see, we can see Burgh Sound here. We can see some land there that was just off the top of the map. That's the shoreline of that, the island. But closer to us, we can just see the start of a bay coming in here, but we can't see the extent of it. We can only just see the spit of land sticking out there. We can't see this other bay or the shoreline down here, and we certainly can't see any roads. And the reason for that is that the ground that we can't see is obscured by the shape of the ground in the foreground. So just this small area of land immediately ahead of us obscures that shoreline down below us, meaning that it puts that shoreline in dead ground. We can't see it because of the shape of the ground between us and that thing that we might be looking for. So if we go back to that map and look closely at the ground from where the photo was taken from, you see there's just a little flat area before the ground drops away. So think of this as being a little lip, and we're not quite at the lip, so we can't see over the lip and down the other side. So there we were. We wouldn't have to go very far forward at all. You can imagine there just taking 10 meters further forwards, and we then would be able to look over the edge and down onto that shoreline. So are there any times when we can look at the map and know for certain that there would be land that we could see or land that we couldn't see? Are there any slopes that allow us to predict that? Well, yes, there are. Let's have a look. Okay, so here we've got two different slopes. On the left hand side we've got a convex slope, so that means if we were walking downhill we start gradually and then get steeper. The slope gets steeper as we get closer to the bottom. And a concave slope is one where it's steep at the top and gets more gradual towards the bottom. So can we look at those and predict where we'd have dead ground on either of those? Well, yes. Imagine that we are at point X and we're looking downhill. Then we wouldn't be able to see any of this area here below the red arrow because the ground would be obscured by the shape of the land here, just like that example we've given with the photograph. So this is dead ground. So on a convex slope you get dead ground below you. What about a concave slope? Well, in this case, if we were at X going downhill, we would be able to see all the ground here because the shape of the ground wouldn't be obscuring what was in front of us. So that might help us. But unfortunately, we don't just get uniform slopes that are one or the other. We usually get a mixture. So if we look at the map, you can see that we've got contours that we've got flat at the top and then steep below us, but then shallow off again. And here we have maybe a uniform slope and then gets shallow towards the bottom. Here, steep at the top, shallow, and then steep again. But we can see that in some examples on the map, we could call it a convex or a concave slope. So steep and then gradual would be concave. Here, gradual and then steep would be convex. Just note here, we've got a convex slope that's going through a rocky area, possibly steep grounds and cliffs. So convex slopes can be dangerous because we can't see the ground below us, and we can get steeper and steeper and steeper until we get into dangerous terrain. So something to be aware of and to avoid on if we're going down steep convex slopes. Okay, so here we have an example of what we might see in the landscape, an uneven slope. So starting at the top, starts shallow and then gets steeper, and then shallows off again, and then we get a very steep drop off. We've got a little building in that steepening at the base of that steepening there, and then flat, and then a gradual down, just gradually flattens off. So if we were coming down that slope, would we be able to see that building? Well, if we were here at X looking down slope, like the example with the photograph, all of this area here would be in dead ground. We wouldn't be able to see it because of the shape of the ground there. So that's an example where we wouldn't be able to see what was on the map because of dead ground. What about if we came further down the slope? Well, if we came down slope and we were at X there looking down, then we would be able to see this ground below us because of the shape. We might just be able to see the roof of that building there, and then we would be able to see this bit here. So our perspective would change there. We'd be able to see more. And then as we came further down the slope, this time we're at point X, notice that our building has disappeared again. It's in dead ground because of this shape of the ground where we've got that convex slope there. So you can see that we'll have dead ground sometimes, and then it appears again and becomes dead ground again, just based on the shape of the slope. Okay, let's have another look at an example from the landscape. So here, imagine we're on this spot height, the 384 height here, looking northeastwards to Higator. There's a large walled enclosure just ahead of us. Would we be able to see that? Is it an occasion when we can definitely see it, or is it going to be obscured? So looking at the map there, it's hard to say. The photograph, I took a photograph from X, actually looks like this. And you can see there, although you can see Higator in the distance, there is no walled enclosure in sight just ahead of us. And that's just because of that little area of flat ground on the map. I then walked forwards only probably about 10 or 15 meters off the spot height, further towards the walled enclosure, just towards the slight drop in contours there, and then that field, that enclosure became more visible. So there's the photo taken from just that vantage point, just another 15 meters further on, and you can see here we've got that walled enclosure that's now plainly visible. So that's an example where it isn't obvious by looking at the contour on the map whether you will see the features in the landscape. What about going over to the other side of the map? Would it be more obvious looking at it from that direction? Well, let's have a look. Okay, so taken from the other side, again 385 meters. At this point, this time looking southwest, would we be able to see the large sheepfold? Well, this time, because we're looking down the slope that becomes flatter towards the bottom, we might say yes, we would be able to see it. Let's have a look at the photo. And yes, there we can see, much more obvious this time because we're looking down and across this flat ground. The sheepfold's over on there. So that is just a little explanation with some examples of what dead ground is. So a quick recap: it is ground that we can't see because it's obscured due to the shape of the ground in front of us. So hope that helped. Hope it was a useful little description. Maybe go out now, get your maps and go out into your own landscape and have a look for different shapes of slope, convex and concave slopes, and see if you can work out some dead ground based on your landscape. So that's it from me. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.